Okay, let's say you're under contract on your listing, so you've already cleared the hardest part. Then the inspection comes back. The buyer sends a reasonable repair request, and your seller says, no, we are not fixing anything. Take it or leave it. Now a qualified, pre-approved buyer is about to walk away from a deal that was fully intact 48 hours ago. When a seller refuses to negotiate after inspection, the deal can stall fast. This video gives you the exact conversation that helps get them unstuck. Not by pushing harder, but by giving them the context that they need to make a smarter decision. We'll cover why sellers dig in, the framework that moves the conversation forward, and the one step that could prevent the inspection standoff before the home ever hits the market. So let's get to it. The market your seller thinks they're in. Sellers don't dig in because they're irrational. They dig in because they're negotiating in a market that doesn't exist anymore. They remember the stories, buyers waiving inspections, offers over asking. That market is gone. Right now, roughly 13% of contracts, about 1 in 7, fall apart before closing. And inspection and repair issues are the leading cited reasons deals die. On top of that, there are more than 40% more sellers than buyers in the market. So the belief that another buyer is waiting right behind this one is, usually wrong. So can a seller refuse to negotiate after the inspection? Yes, of course they can. Legally, they can refuse anything that the contract doesn't require. But the better question is what that refusal cost them. The real choice isn't give in versus stand firm. It's a reasonable concession now versus going back on the market with a stigmatized listing and often a lower final price than the one they just rejected. By the way, I'm Carrie Hill, lawyer turned realtor and co-founder of Smart Agent Alliance, an eXp Realty sponsor team. Our agents get our personal support and our agent portal with everything they need to onboard quickly, get more real estate deals, and build a future income stream. And because we're part of the Wolfpack, our agents get weekly masterminds, modern trading, and one of the strongest support communities at eXp, all for no cost to our agents. Now, let's look at what's actually driving the seller's refusal, because it's rarely about the repairs themselves. Why sellers refuse. There are usually a few reasons a seller refuses to negotiate after an inspection, and once you know which one is driving the reaction, you can respond more calmly. Emotion. The inspection report reads as an attack on the home they love, so refusal to concede becomes self-protection. Anchoring. They're fixed on the accepted price, so every repair dollar feels like a loss from a number they had already celebrated. Misreading market power. They believe another buyer is right behind this one. And in this market, we know it's usually wrong. Once you've named which one you're dealing with, you're ready for the actual conversation. The conversation framework. You're not trying to win an argument here. You're walking the seller from an emotional reaction to a financial decision in a specific order. Step 1, separate the emotional transaction from the financial one. Say something like, every inspection on every house comes back with a list. That's the inspector's job. This is a small number of specific items that the buyer needs addressed or wants addressed. So let me show you which ones they're talking about and what they would likely cost. Step 2, triage the list into 3 buckets. Bucket A is structural or safety. Items the lender will likely require. Frame those as lender requirements, not buyer demands. Bucket B is high impact, reasonable items that will show up on every future buyer's inspection too. Bucket C is low cost or cosmetic. Walk the seller through the actual dollar cost so that they can see how small it often is. Step 3, present the math of refusal versus concession. If the buyer walks, the home goes back on the market. Every future agent asks why the deal died. The report gets scrutinized harder, and the seller often ends up accepting a lower offer from a buyer who submits the same request. The concession now is almost always cheaper than starting over. Step 4. Offer an alternative to straight repairs. The most common is a closing cost credit. The seller avoids managing contractors and delays. The math is often the same or better, and there's no stress around getting it done, and the deal survives. These steps aren't about forcing the seller to say yes. It's about helping them understand the cost of saying no. By the way, if you're finding this information useful at all, please subscribe. It helps motivate me to keep doing it. When they still won't budge. Sometimes you do everything right and the seller still refuses. And at that point, your job shifts from persuasion to your protection. Let them choose and then document it. Send a written summary per our conversation. You're deciding not to offer a repair or a credit on the following items, and I'm confirming that in writing. That protects you from a later claim that you never advised them, and it makes the seller own the outcome clearly. Confirm your written summary with your broker before you send anything out. Prevent this before it happens. The easiest inspection negotiation is the one that happens before there's a buyer applying pressure. In some markets, seller-provided inspections are normal, like mine. It's like 99% of people already do this. The seller orders the inspection before going on the market. You review the likely friction points early, and the seller has time to decide whether to repair, disclose. Well, of course they're going to disclose. Everything has to be disclosed, but they get to decide whether or not they're going to repair it or they want to just offer a credit. And you have the time to make a price around each one of those issues. That does 4 things. It gives the seller time to absorb the information before there's a buyer applying pressure. It helps surface more buyer offers because there's no great expense to make an offer for the buyers then. It helps buyers write stronger offers because they know more about what's going on before they commit. And it makes the accepted price closer to the real final price because the issues are already on the table. If sellers' inspections aren't common in your market, you may get some pushback, especially from the seller. That's fine. The point isn't that every seller must do it. The point is that surprises create leverage for the buyer, and early information gives your seller more control. And if your seller is just focused on the upfront cost of those inspections, here's one option. If it's allowed in your market and works for your business, you can offer to advance the inspection fees and get reimbursed at closing. Just be careful how you structure that. The inspection agreement should be in the seller's name, not yours, because the seller owns the property. The seller is relying on the inspection, and the seller needs to preserve any legal recourse if the inspection is not properly performed. And hey, if you're even slightly interested about EXP, the clearest, fastest breakdown is in our 18-minute inside look, and that link is in the description, along with our contact information if you want to strategize about what your business would look like at EXP, all confidentially, of course. If your next challenge is winning a listing from an overpriced seller or handling one who wants to rent instead of selling, both of those videos should be on screen right now. Thank you for watching and have a great day.